Welcome to the Inner Ascent. In this episode, we dive into one of the most mind-bending questions of modern philosophy and science. What if everything we call reality, the stars, the earth, even our own thoughts, is part of a vast simulation? From Nick Bostrom's trilemma to quantum glitches, from déjà vu to digital DNA, the simulation hypothesis challenges not just how the universe works, but what we truly are. Are we code inside a cosmic computer? Or conscious players in a reality designed for growth and experience? Let's explore the simulation hypothesis and the nature of reality.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for, the ultimate reality check. We're tackling a question that has really shifted in the last couple of decades. It's gone from just sci-fi pages into, serious talks in philosophy, physics, computer science.
A big one.
Yeah, the big one. Are we living in a simulation?
It is, I think, the single most mind-bending question we can even ask. And what's fascinating is the evidence or the arguments for it aren't tucked away in some, ancient mystical text.
Right.
It's kind of hidden in plain sight. It's encoded potentially in quantum physics and probability. The source material you shared today is, it's rich. It covered a lot of ground.
It really does. We've got Nick Bostrom's cold mathematical logic.
The trilemma, yeah.
To the engineering roadmap from Rizwan Virk, and even the stranger ideas from people like Philip K. Dick.
A real mix of thinkers.
So our mission today is pretty straightforward. We want to give you, the listener, a kind of rapid shortcut. We want to help you understand why some major thinkers, investors, MIT computer scientists, philosophers, why they believe this possibility that we're simulated isn't just like a fringe idea anymore.
But actually highly likely, statistically speaking.
Exactly. And it's not just theory. We're already kind of blurring the lines ourselves, aren't we?
Right.
I mean, think about deepfake videos.
Oh, yeah. Getting scary good.
Right. Or highly curated social media lives.
Yeah.
Massive VR worlds being built. We're basically building the tools right now that you need to simulate reality.
And that's the crux, isn't it? That technological maturity forces the question. If we can even get close to creating a reality that's indistinguishable from this one, it becomes really, really hard mathematically to argue that a civilization, say, 1,000,000 years ahead of us, hasn't already done it. And not just once.
That thousands, maybe millions of times.
Tens of thousands, astronomical numbers, potentially.
Okay, so let's try and unpack this huge idea. We'll start with the statistical argument, the inevitability case. Then we'll jump into the really weird world of quantum physics, look for these programming constraints, maybe hidden in reality.
Like limits in the code.
Yeah. And then we'll get into the glitches, the paradoxes, like the Mandela effect, and what it all means existentially if we're living inside, the ultimate RPG.
Sounds like a plan. It's a big topic.
All right, so first base, we absolutely have to start with Nick Bostrom's 2003 paper. It's kind of the foundational text here, setting up the simulation trilemma.
Yeah, this paper really anchors the whole hypothesis, provides that statistical backbone. Bostrom, the Oxford philosopher, wasn't initially arguing for the simulation idea, funny enough.
Oh, really?
No, he was arguing that if you look at any civilization that gets advanced enough, reaches what he called technological maturity, one of three things must be true.
Okay.
They're mutually exclusive. You can't have two be true, but at least one of them has to hold.
Okay, let's walk through them. So proposition one, this is the depressing one, right? That basically advanced civilizations, they almost always wipe themselves out before reaching that maturity level.
Yeah, this is often called the Great Filter. It's some kind of bottleneck event. Could be anything, really. Nuclear war, ecological collapse, maybe inventing AI that goes completely rogue.
Scary thought.
It is. And if that's true, well, then the reason we don't see aliens isn't because they aren't out there. It's because everyone hits this filter and dies off before they get advanced enough to, build simulations or travel between stars. And maybe we're getting close to that filter ourselves.
Okay, not cheerful. But let's assume we reject that. Let's say civilizations can survive. They can reach that technological maturity. Then we get to proposition two.
Right. Proposition 2 is basically the anti-simulation choice. It says, okay, civilizations get super advanced, but for some reason, maybe it's ethical, maybe it's just a universal lack of interest, or maybe resources are just too prohibitive. They all choose never to run these ultra-realistic ancestor simulations.
So they could do it, but they just don't want to, universally.
Yeah, seems a bit unlikely, right? That every single advanced civilization forever would just say, nah, not interested.
It feels like a big assumption. Which leads us then to where Bostrom kind of brings the hammer down. If we reject number 1, extinction, and we reject number 2, universal refusal.
You're mathematically, almost inescapably forced into proposition 3. That we are almost certainly living inside a computer simulation right now.
And the logic isn't philosophical at this point, it's just numbers.
It's pure statistical weight, pure volume. Think about it. If just one civilization, anywhere, anytime, can run these realistic simulations and chooses to run them maybe to study their past, maybe to explore what-if scenarios, maybe just for fun, like The Sims on steroids.
They wouldn't run just one, would they?
Exactly. They'd run, as Bostrom puts it, an astronomical number of them. It's computationally cheap for them, potentially.
So let's say base reality runs, I don't know, 1 million simulations. And each one has billions of conscious-seeming beings inside.
Right. So you've got one base reality and 1 million simulated ones. Where does the vast, overwhelming majority of all conscious experience exist?
In the simulations, like 99.999% or something.
By definition. So statistically, if you're a conscious being, where are you more likely to find yourself? In that one unique base reality, or in one of the countless simulated ones?
Yeah, okay. The odds are not in favor of being base reality. It's a numbers game we lose badly.
Precisely.
Now, connecting that kind of heavy philosophy to something more tangible, maybe. Rizwan Virk, the MIT computer scientist guy, he gives us this idea of the simulation point. It's like the technical finish line we're supposedly racing towards.
Yeah, Virk's concept is crucial because it grounds Bostrom's abstract idea in actual engineering. He defines the simulation point as the specific moment when we, humans, can create virtual worlds totally indistinguishable from physical reality.
And not just empty worlds, right? Populated ones.
Exactly. Populated by AI characters, NPCs, that are so sophisticated they're indistinguishable from biological humans. If we reach that point, Bostrom's statistical argument basically flips over instantly and becomes overwhelmingly likely.
And Virk doesn't just pull this out of thin air. He actually maps it out, doesn't he? Like 10 stages of tech development needed to get there. And we're like halfway.
Roughly, yeah. He outlines this progression. We started with, text adventures way back, then simple graphics, MMOs like World of Warcraft. Now we're deep into realistic VR, AR is coming online.
So what are the big hurdles still ahead? What stage, like 9 or 10?
Well, the really big ones involve massive computational power, like on a global scale. Think quantum computing resources distributed everywhere. And then crucially, brain-computer interfaces, BCIs.
Ah, the direct link.
Yeah, stuff that bypasses screens and controllers entirely. Feeds the simulation's sensory data directly into our nervous system. Total immersion. No more avatar. You are the avatar.
And the AI. The NPCs, they have to be believable.
Completely. They need to pass the Turing test not just in conversation, but existentially. They need to show complex emotions, creativity, maybe even the appearance of self-awareness. Otherwise, the illusion breaks for any actual players in the sim.
So Virk puts his confidence level at, what, 70% sure we'll reach this point?
Yeah, which is basically his way of saying he's 70% sure we're already simulated, because if we're likely to get there, the odds are someone else already did.
It feeds this whole inevitability argument. It feels like we're on this unstoppable track. One source called us the technological caterpillar building these electronic butterfly. We just keep making smaller, faster, denser electronics.
It's just the way innovation seems to work, right? It pushes towards more complexity, more integration. The demand for richer, more immersive virtual experiences is huge, culturally and economically. That demand fuels the push for better AI, better interfaces, more computing power.
So if humans can merge with these systems...
They probably will. It seems inevitable. We become symbiotic. And creating super complex simulations is almost like a natural side effect of that whole process.
Okay, but this idea of inevitable complexity feels a bit abstract. How do we know complexity can just happen? That brings us to John Conway's Game of Life.
Ah, yes, the Game of Life. It's such a brilliant example, a favorite for computational philosophers, because it shows just how elegantly simple the underlying rules of a complex system, maybe even a universe, could be.
So remind us how it works. It's pretty basic, right?
Incredibly basic. Created back in the 70s, it's just a 2D grid, like an infinite checkerboard. Each little square or cell is either alive or dead, black or white.
And the cells themselves are dumb.
Completely dumb. They only follow a couple of incredibly simple rules based only on their immediate neighbors. Like, a dead cell becomes alive, it's born only if it has exactly 3 live neighbors.
Okay.
And a live cell dies if it has too few neighbors, like less than 2, that's loneliness, isolation, or if it has too many, more than 3, that's overcrowding. Simple rules for birth and death.
And that's it. That's the entire program.
That is, metaphorically speaking, the entire source code for that little universe. But what emerges, it's just astonishing. From those 2 deterministic rules, you get this explosion of spontaneous, arbitrary complexity.
Like what kind of things?
Oh, you get stable patterns, oscillating patterns called blinkers. You get things called gliders patterns that actually move across the grid forever. Glider guns that constantly shoot out new gliders. Complex spaceships, and most incredibly, structures that can actually replicate themselves. And the ultimate discovery was that you can build, within the game of life, using these emergent patterns, a fully functional, perfect computer, a Turing machine.
Wow. From just those simple on-off rules.
Exactly. It demonstrates that creating a simulation, a universe even, might be much easier than we think. The programmer doesn't necessarily need to design every single atom, every galaxy, every historical event by hand.
They just set the initial conditions and the basic rules.
It's like
physics.
Could be. Set the foundational rules, gravity, electromagnetism, the quantum stuff, press play, and let complexity emerge naturally. Everything we see, evolution, consciousness, technology, like Joe Rogan's podcast or Elon Musk's rockets, it could all just be emergent properties of a simple underlying rule set.
Which would be incredibly efficient from a programming standpoint. Minimizes the computational load for whoever's running the sim.
Elegant code. It completely reframes what physics is searching for, doesn't it? Maybe the goal isn't just to understand what the universe is, but to find the fundamental rules of the game engine.
Okay, so shifting from these sort of statistical inevitability to the actual nitty-gritty physics of our reality. This is where we start seeing things that look, well, suspiciously like programming constraints, like ways to save memory or CPU.
Absolutely. And the first, probably the most profound piece of evidence comes from the deep weirdness of quantum mechanics. Specifically, the idea that the universe is not locally real.
Which actually won the Nobel Prize in Physics recently, right? 2022, proving this.
Essentially, yes. They closed the loopholes in experiments that tested Bell's theorem, pretty much confirming that the universe doesn't behave the way our classical intuition expects.
Okay, so break down not locally real for us. What does that mean?
Well, the physics we learned in school, the Newtonian view, assumes objects have definite properties, whether we look at them or not. The moon is there, it has a position, a mass, it's solid, even if no one's observing it. That's local realism.
Makes sense. Seems obvious.
Except at the quantum level, it's just wrong. Particles, like electrons or photons, don't have definite properties like position or spin until you measure them. Until then, they exist only as a wave of probabilities, a range of possibilities.
So they're not really there in a fixed state.
Not until an observation, a measurement, forces that probability wave to collapse into one single definite reality. That's quantum indeterminacy. It fundamentally breaks the idea of a fixed objective reality that exists independently of us, the observers.
Okay, that's weird. But how does that connect to simulation theory? Why would a universe be built that way?
Well, this is where the simulation hypothesis offers a really compelling why. The answer is optimization. It's the ultimate resource management strategy for a simulated universe.
Okay, explain that. Use the video game analogy.
Right. Think about a huge online game, like a massive multiplayer online RPG. The computers, the servers running that world have limited resources, right? CPU power, memory, bandwidth. It's not infinite.
Sure.
So it's computationally impossible for the game engine to render the entire vast world, every tree, every rock, every NPC, down to the last detail in perfect high resolution for every single player, all the time. It would crash the system instantly.
So what does it do instead?
It cheats. It uses optimization techniques. The game engine only renders the bits of the world that are actually needed by the player at that moment, usually what's in their immediate vicinity or their line of sight. Everything else, stuff far away or behind you, is either kept in a low-resolution state, like low-poly models, or it's simply not rendered at all. It's just placeholder data until your avatar gets close enough to need the high-res version loaded in.
And that's like the observer effect.
It's a perfect parallel. The universe only renders reality when it's needed upon observation or measurement. It collapses the probability wave into a definite physical state only when required, saving potentially infinite computational resources. Why calculate the state of a particle if no one's looking at it?
That makes unsettling sense. And it ties back to that physicist John Wheeler and his idea from bit.
Exactly. Wheeler proposed way back that fundamentally the universe isn't made of matter or energy in the classical sense. It's made of information, bits, answers to yes-no questions.
So the physical world is just the output.
The output of a computation. The physical reality we experience is how this underlying information substrate gets rendered for us, the observers. The big question for science then becomes, how does that rendering process work? How does pure information put on a convincing physical costume?
If reality is information, then maybe the fundamental constants of nature are like system limitations. Let's talk about the speed of light.
Right. See? The universal speed limit. Nothing with mass can reach it. Nothing can exceed it. Why? Why this absolute fixed limit on how fast information or influence can travel?
In a simulation, why would you need a speed limit?
Well, it could be the universe's refresh rate or cosmic frame rate imposed by the programmers. Think about it in game terms again. If your character could move infinitely fast, faster than the game engine could load the environment.
You'd run off the edge of the rendered world, see glitches, crash the game.
Exactly. The speed of light acts as a processing limit. It ensures that cause and effect stay consistent, that the whole simulated environment remains synchronized. It prevents information paradoxes and stops the system from getting overloaded by trying to process too much too quickly. It's a fundamental rule for resource management.
Okay, and similarly, there's the Planck length, the smallest possible distance.
Yeah, according to physics, there's a fundamental limit to measurement. The Planck length and associated Planck time represent the smallest possible units of space and time that have any physical meaning. You can't, even in theory, measure anything smaller.
So you can't just keep zooming in forever?
Nope. If reality were truly continuous, like a smooth line, you should be able to. But the Planck scale suggests reality is granular, pixelated.
It's literally the universe's resolution limit.
That's the simulation argument. If our reality is a super high-definition simulation, the Planck length could be the size of the fundamental pixels or the grid size of that simulation. Try to look closer, and you hit the limit of the rendering resolution. It points to a discrete computed reality, not a continuous one.
There's also evidence suggesting the universe isn't just limited, but actively designed for data efficiency. This brings in Dr. Vopson and infodynamics.
Yes, Melvin Vopson's work is really interesting and quite controversial. It challenges a cornerstone of physics, the second law of thermodynamics.
Which says?
Basically that entropy, or disorder, always increases in a closed system. Things naturally decay, fall apart, become more random over time. Hot coffee cools down, buildings crumble.
Right.
But Vopson looked at this through the lens of information theory. He argues that information entropy, a measure of disorder or randomness in information systems, seems to decrease in certain natural processes. He calls this the second law of infodynamics.
Where does he see this decrease happening?
His prime example is in viral mutations, like with SARS-CoV-2. His analysis suggests that as the virus mutates, the information structure of its genome actually becomes more ordered, more optimized, less computationally complex over time. It's like the system is trying to compress the data.
That's the opposite of what you'd expect from random mutations.
Completely. Random changes should increase disorder, increase information entropy. Vopson's finding implies that the universe has a built-in drive towards data optimization, towards minimizing its information content.
And what does that imply about reality?
It implies the universe isn't just a random, chaotic process. It suggests it's fundamentally structured, perhaps even programmed, with a principle of data efficiency built into its core operating system. A system designed to minimize its own computational load, always seeking efficiency and order. That sounds much more like a deliberately designed simulation than a purely natural, random universe.
Wow. Okay, let's turn to maybe one of the more mysterious figures in this.
Yeah.
Jaco Grinberg, the Mexican scientist who vanished. His Keurig theory seems to tie consciousness directly into this information matrix.
Grinberg's work is fascinating and, deeply mysterious given his disappearance in the 90s. His theory is radical, but it aligns incredibly well with the simulation idea. He proposed that reality isn't solid matter, but an informational matrix, an underlying source code he called la lattice.
The lattice.
Yeah.
Like the matrix.
Pretty much. And human consciousness, in his view, is the device that reads this code. Our brain interacts with this informational field, and that interaction creates our perception of physical reality.
But he thought consciousness could do more than just read.
Yes, that was the radical part. He believed that through specific training, maybe meditation or shamanic practices, consciousness could shift from being a passive code reader to an active code writer, meaning it could potentially influence or manipulate the informational matrix directly, thereby altering perceived reality.
So changing the code from within. And he ran experiments to test this.
He did. His most famous one involved trying to demonstrate a kind of telepathic connection or entanglement mediated by this underlying field.
Tell us about that experiment, electrodes on heads.
Right. He took 2 participants, had them meditate together to establish a connection, then he put them in separate electromagnetically shielded rooms, Faraday cages. One person would then be subjected to random stimuli, like bright flashes of light or loud sounds. The other person sat in complete silence, just being monitored.
And what happened in the silent person's brain?
This is the kicker. In a significant number of trials, nearly 25%, the brain activity of the person in the silent room showed a simultaneous, identical response, a specific brainwave pattern called an evoked potential, at the exact moment the other person received the stimulus.
Even though they couldn't see or hear it.
Exactly. Grinberg interpreted this as evidence of a direct non-local connection between their minds, what he called telepathic entanglement, happening via this shared informational background, the lattice.
It suggests our minds aren't just isolated inside our skulls.
Precisely. It implies we're all nodes connected to this grand background information field, this matrix. And if that's true, it opens the door to possibilities like remote viewing, telepathy, maybe even reality manipulation, if you can learn to interact with the field directly.
And the fact that the CIA was apparently interested in him and his mentor.
Yeah, his mentor, Doña Pachita, was a renowned Mexican shaman rumored to perform psychic surgery and other phenomena. The reported interest from programs like Stargate suggests that, at least to some intelligence agencies, Grinberg's ideas about consciousness interacting with an informational reality were perhaps more than just fringe science.
Okay, so if we're running with this idea that we're inside a complex computer program, then logically, we should probably expect to find some evidence of, well, bugs, glitches in the code, patches maybe, corrupted save files.
And that brings us squarely to the phenomenon known as the Mandela effect. It's become the sort of poster child for simulation glitches in popular culture.
Define it for us. It's about shared false memories, right?
Exactly. It's when large groups of people, often completely disconnected from each other, share a distinct memory of something that, according to historical records, never actually happened or happened differently. The name comes from the widespread, mistaken memory many people have of Nelson Mandela dying in prison back in the 1980s.
Which, of course, he didn't. He was released, became president.
Right. But it's the smaller, more personal examples that really seem to unsettle people. Like the Monopoly Man. Many people distinctly remember him wearing a monocle.
He never did.
Never did. Or the children's books, the Berenstain Bears. A huge number of people are absolutely certain it was spelled Berenstein with an E-I-N.
I think I remember that too.
See? Or famous movie lines, like Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father." The actual line is, "No, I am your father."
Okay, so what's the conventional explanation for this stuff? Just bad memory?
Pretty much. Cognitive psychologists usually explain it through things like confabulation, where our brain unconsciously fills in memory gaps with plausible but incorrect details, or source memory errors, or just social reinforcement. You hear the wrong version repeated often enough, it starts to feel true.
But simulation theorists, they have a much more dramatic take.
Oh yeah. For them, these aren't just memory errors. They could be actual evidence of, well, glitches. Maybe the simulation software underwent an update, a patch was applied, and during that process, the save file containing certain historical data got slightly corrupted.
Like a bug introduced during maintenance.
Or the other explanation, which is maybe even wilder, these memories are bleeding through from alternate timelines.
How would that work?
Maybe the simulation runs multiple versions simultaneously, or perhaps old versions, different timelines, were paused or shut down, and during a system restart or merge, some data fragments, some memories from those other timelines leaked into ours.
This idea of reality changing, timelines shifting, this was something Philip K. Dick was obsessed with, right?
Yeah.
Long before Bostrom.
Absolutely. Dick was convinced, based on his own strange experiences, that we were living in a computer-programmed reality. He called it the Black Iron Prison. And he believed the only real clue we get is when, as he put it, some variable is changed.
And that change cost
An alteration in our reality. Something feels off, a historical fact seems wrong. And that weird feeling of déjà vu, the sense you've lived this moment before, Dick saw that as evidence of a system rerun. The simulation was maybe reset to a previous point and reloaded with slightly different parameters, causing that flicker of recognition.
Okay, but the idea of altering the past, that's not just sci-fi anymore, is it? Physics experiments seem to show this happening. Retrocausality, the delayed choice experiment.
This is where physics truly bends your mind. The delayed choice experiment, pioneered conceptually by John Wheeler again, is an extension of the famous double-slit experiment, but it adds this temporal twist.
So walk us through it simply.
Okay, you set up an experiment where a particle, like a single photon, has to make a choice, like which of two paths will it take? In the lab version, it might be which slit to go through. In grander cosmological versions, they look at light from distant quasars that passed around a galaxy billions of years ago and had to choose a path around the galaxy.
So the choice happened way back then or far away.
Exactly. But here's the absolutely bizarre part. The scientists delay their decision about how they're going to measure the particle specifically, whether they'll measure it in a way that reveals its path, like a particle, or in a way that looks for interference, like a wave, until after the particle has already passed that choice point.
They decide how to measure after the event happened.
Yes. And the measurement they choose to make now, in the present, retroactively determines the history of that particle. It forces the particle to have behaved either as a particle taking a specific path or as a wave taking both paths, back when it made the choice.
So our observation today literally dictates what happened billions of years ago to that light from the quasar.
That's what the experiments show. We are effectively choosing the past by observing the present. It's what Erwin Schrödinger found so disturbing. He famously said that observations seem to involve choosing from one of multiple simultaneous histories.
The past isn't fixed until it's observed.
It seems the past exists as a superposition of possibilities, just like the quantum particle, until a measurement in the present collapses it into a single, definite history.
Okay, how does this relate back to simulation theory? And maybe multiple timelines like the Mandela effect hints at.
Well, this idea of multiple possible histories existing simultaneously solves a huge problem with the standard many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics.
Which is?
The standard many worlds idea suggests that every time a quantum choice is made, the entire physical universe splits into parallel universes, one for each outcome. The problem is that requires infinite physical universes constantly branching off. It's computationally and physically insane. A ridiculous expenditure of resources, an infinite memory leak.
But if it's a simulation?
Then running multiple timelines becomes computationally feasible. The programmer doesn't need to create infinite physical universes. They just need to create multiple copies of the data, run multiple variations of the simulation code.
Like different save files or different runs of the program.
Exactly. These different timelines, these different possible histories can exist as data, perhaps in superposition, within the simulation's architecture. Then, when an observation or a choice is made by a conscious observer within the sim,
It collapses the possibilities down to the one timeline, the one storyline being experienced.
right, it's a vastly more efficient, optimized way to handle quantum branching and multiple possibilities compared to splitting infinite physical realities. It conserves computational resources.
This framework of choosing paths and maybe influencing outcomes, it lends a weirdly technological spin to things we usually think of as mystical or just coincidence, like synchronicity, even manifesting.
It really does. Synchronicity, as Carl Jung defined it, is that meaningful coincidence where an internal thought or feeling aligns strangely with an external event. You know, you dream about a specific rare bird and then you see one the next day. Or you're thinking intensely about a problem and the solution seems to just appear externally.
And manifesting or prayer?
Yeah.
How does that fit?
In this model, it's not about magically bending physical laws. It could be seen as the conscious agent, the player, actively focusing their intent to select from the available pre-computed potential paths or storylines within the simulation's probability space.
But how would the simulation know our intent? The advertising analogy seems apt here.
It's a great analogy. When you browse online, maybe you put an item in your shopping cart but don't buy it. You've signaled intent to the website's database, right?
And then ads for that exact backpack follow you everywhere.
Precisely. Your registered intent triggers external responses from the system. So in the simulation of reality, maybe our internal state, our strong intentions, desires, focus, even fears, gets registered by the underlying game engine. like a digital cookie tracking our consciousness.
And if that registered intent aligns with the possibilities allowed within our character's current storyline or quest parameters.
Then the game engine might subtly orchestrate external events or bring information to our attention that aligns with that intent. The unexpected phone call, the chance meeting, finding the exact book you need. It's the system presenting the most relevant path based on your signaled intent.
But it's not unlimited, right? That explains why I can't just manifest a winning lottery ticket tomorrow.
Probably not, no, because that outcome might be wildly out of sync with the established rules, the difficulty level, or the narrative coherence chosen for your character's current run. The simulation still likely operates within its own programmed constraints, physics, probability, storyline logic. But within those constraints, our conscious intent might act as a kind of steering mechanism, helping us navigate towards certain pre-rendered future possibilities over others.
Right, so if we start to take this simulation idea seriously, it forces us to confront some pretty big existential questions. Like, what's the point? Do we have free will? And here, it seems important to distinguish between two main flavors of the simulation hypothesis.
Yeah, that's a crucial distinction. There's what you might call the scary version, the NPC version, and then there's the more hopeful or meaningful version, the RPG version.
Okay, what's the NPC version? That sounds bleak.
It is pretty bleak. NPC stands for non-player character, like the background characters in a video game. This version suggests that maybe most people in the simulation are just sophisticated AIs, automatons running on code, and maybe only you, or a very small number of beings, are actually conscious players.
So everyone else is just scenery. And my choices are predetermined.
Potentially, yeah. In the pure NPC model, you might be the sole conscious entity, trapped in a completely deterministic program with no real free will at all. Your sense of choice is just an illusion generated by the code. That's a pretty terrifying thought.
Definitely. Okay, so what's the alternative, the RPG version?
Right. The role-playing game model offers a very different and I think more compelling perspective on consciousness and purpose. In this view, your consciousness, your awareness, your soul, whatever you want to call your essential self, it exists outside the simulation.
As the player.
Exactly. You are the player existing in some other reality, maybe the base reality, or maybe just another level up. And you choose to log into this simulated world, inhabiting a body, the avatar, to have specific experiences.
So the body is like the controller or the character sheet?
Sort of. The player-avatar distinction is key here. It helps reconcile our strong intuitive sense of having free will with the deterministic or probabilistic laws of physics that seem to govern the simulation's environment.
How so?
Well, the avatar, the physical body, the brain chemistry, the environment it interacts with might be largely governed by the simulation's programmed rules. Gravity works, biology works, cause and effect operate. But the player, the consciousness from outside, still gets to make the high-level choices.
Like choosing which game to play, which quest to go on.
Exactly. Choosing the overall mission, maybe setting the difficulty level before logging in, deciding which paths to explore within the game world's rules. That player-level choice allows for genuine free will, even if the avatar's moment-to-moment actions are constrained by the simulation's physics.
But if we're players who logged in, why don't we remember doing it? Why don't we remember the outside world? This feels like a big hole.
It does, but there's a necessary mechanic for immersion. Forgetfulness. Think about ancient myths, like the river Lethe in Greek mythology. Souls had to drink from it to forget their past lives before being reincarnated.
So we forget on purpose.
The idea is, yes, it's a necessary part of the interface. Or think about putting on a really convincing VR headset today. To truly get immersed, to feel like you're really there, you have to suspend your disbelief. You have to temporarily forget you're actually sitting in your living room wearing goggles.
So the forgetting is crucial for the game to feel real, for the stakes to feel real.
Precisely. If you remembered you were an immortal player just playing a game, would you really feel fear? Would you strive? Would you learn the same lessons from failure or loss? That temporary amnesia is essential for the avatar to experience genuine jeopardy, growth, surprise, and meaning within the simulation.
Okay, so if we accept this RPG model, with players choosing to log in and forget, it still leaves the question, why is the game often so damn hard? Why so much suffering, scarcity, challenge?
That's a great question. And interestingly, the video game industry itself provides a potential answer. We can look at someone like Nolan Bushnell, the founder of Atari. He had this core maxim for good game design.
What was that?
Make the game easy to play, but difficult to master.
Easy to play, difficult to master. Why?
Think about it. If a game is too easy, If you master it instantly, you get bored. You stop playing. There's no challenge, no growth. But if it's too hard, too punishing right from the start, players get frustrated and just give up. They abandon the game prematurely.
So life, with all its difficulties, seems kind of perfectly calibrated to that sweet spot. Challenging, but not impossibly so most of the time.
That's the argument. The struggles we face, health problems, financial crises, relationship breakdowns, career failures, maybe they shouldn't be seen as random misfortunes or cosmic punishments. Maybe they are the game ramping up the difficulty levels.
Difficulty levels chosen by us, by the player.
Perhaps. Chosen before entering the game, specifically for a particular quest or storyline, the player, the soul, wanted to experience for maximum learning and growth. In this view, difficulty isn't a bug, it's the central feature of the game, designed to make us stronger, wiser, more compassionate.
That completely reframes hardship. Instead of asking, why me? You might ask, what's the lesson here? What skill is this quest trying to teach me?
Exactly. It shifts the focus dramatically. Instead of pursuing maximum comfort and ease, maybe the goal becomes actively engaging with the meaningful challenges inherent in our chosen storyline. It injects purpose into suffering itself.
It changes the whole point. It's not about winning easily, it's about playing the hard levels well, like an actor taking on a challenging role because that's where the real craft is shown.
Well put. The soul learns and evolves most profoundly by tackling the hard mode quests, not by breezing through the tutorial levels.
Okay, so what happens when the game ends? When the avatar dies? This RPG model seems to connect neatly with phenomena like near-death experiences, especially the life review part.
NDEs are often cited as strong anecdotal evidence for consciousness existing beyond the physical body, potentially fitting the player avatar model. And yes, the life review component is particularly fascinating from a simulation perspective.
Remind us what happens in the life review.
People who have NDEs often report seeing their entire life flash before them, not just as a passive movie, but often experienced with intense emotional and sensory detail. But the most striking aspect, reported again and again, is experiencing their own actions and the consequences of those actions from the perspective of the other people involved.
Wow. So if I hurt someone, I feel their pain.
Exactly. You might see an event where you were cruel or dishonest, and you experience the emotional pain, the betrayal, the fear that you caused in the other person, as if it were happening to you. Conversely, you might also experience the joy or comfort you brought to others.
That sounds like an incredibly powerful feedback mechanism built into the system.
It functions as the ultimate learning tool for the player, doesn't it? It forces a profound understanding of interconnectedness and consequence. It's like a post-game debrief designed for maximum empathy and ethical growth.
And the very fact that the past seems to be replayable in this way, viewable from any perspective, even in objects, that suggests reality wasn't fixed and physical in the first place.
Precisely. It suggests that our life experiences are stored, perhaps as data, in a non-physical format, allowing them to be accessed and re-experienced omnisciently after the avatar logs out. This fits the simulation model far better than a purely physicalist view of memory being only in the brain.
So when the avatar dies, the player logs out.
That's the idea in the RPG model.
Yeah.
The player consciousness disconnects from the avatar, returns home wherever that base reality is, reviews the gameplay via the life review, integrates the lessons learned.
And maybe prepared for the next level or a different game.
Potentially. It offers a kind of computational basis for concepts like reincarnation, karma as learning consequences, or simply continuous soul evolution through multiple experiential lives or runs of the simulation.
Okay, we've gone deep into the technological and physical arguments, but we need to step back a bit too, because there's a whole other line of thought, a philosophical argument that says, even if our universe isn't literally running on some alien supercomputer, we are already living in a simulation. A social, cultural simulation, hyperreality.
Yes, and this brings us to the work of the French postmodern philosopher Jean Baudrillard. He was writing about this stuff way before the Matrix movie, before deepfakes and VR were common household terms.
And his core idea was?
His core idea, quite prophetically, was that we increasingly live in a world with more and more information, less and less meaning. He argued that the real has effectively collapsed into the simulated. We've lost the ability to distinguish between the two, or maybe we even prefer the simulation.
This centers around his concept of simulacra, right?
Yeah.
Copies without originals.
Exactly. Baudrillard traced how representations or copies have changed their relationship to reality over time. Historically, a map was a copy representing a real territory. A portrait represented a real person.
The copy reflected reality.
Right. But then, he argued, copies started to mask the absence of a deep reality. Think of religious icons suggesting God's presence. Then, copies started to pretend there was a reality when there wasn't one, like maybe some forms of political propaganda creating a false image of national unity.
And the final stage is the most dangerous.
The fourth order simulacrum, yes. This is a copy that has absolutely no connection to any reality whatsoever. It doesn't copy or mask anything. It is its own reality. Or even stranger, it's the copy that actually precedes the real, generating the reality it supposedly represents.
Okay, give us some concrete examples of that fourth order stuff. It sounds abstract.
Think about your online identity. Your perfectly curated Instagram profile with all the filters and staged photos. Is that a representation of the real you?
Probably not entirely.
Baudrillard would say it's often a simulacrum. It's a copy with no direct original. And worse, we then start trying to make our messy real lives conform to the idealized, simulated digital version of ourselves. The copy generates the reality.
Wow. Okay. What else?
Brand images are a perfect example. What is Nike? Is it the physical shoe? No. The brand image, this abstract concept of athleticism, coolness, just do it, is a simulacrum that has become far more real and valuable than the actual product. It exists independently. Apple is another one.
And this state where the simulation is more real than the real, that's hyperreality.
Yes. We live immersed in hyperreality, where simulations and simulacra constitute our primary experience. And Baudrillard argued, we often prefer the simulation. Think about nature documentaries.
Yeah.
A beautifully shot, edited documentary with dramatic music is often more intense, more real feeling, more emotionally engaging than actually spending hours quietly observing animals in the wild, which can be, frankly, quite boring sometimes. We prefer the heightened, simulated version.
And Disneyland, he had a specific take on Disneyland, didn't he?
He did. He saw Disneyland as the perfect example of contained hyperreality. It's overtly fake, a fantasy land. It doesn't hide its artificiality.
So what's its purpose then in the larger hyperreality?
Its purpose, Baudrillard argued, is to make everything outside Disneyland seem real by comparison. By presenting itself as the ultimate fake place, it allows the rest of America, with its own layers of simulation, branding, political theater, simulated environments like shopping malls, to feel authentic and real for a while. It's a simulation designed to hide the fact that the entire country is already a simulation.
That is deeply cynical.
It is. But it resonates, doesn't it? The societal consequence is we get addicted to simulations, fake news, fake food, like perfectly uniform supermarket produce, fake personalities, political spectacles that are pure performance art.
And we get pulled away from anything. Messy. Authentic.
The system encourages it. Baudrillard urged people to actively seek out pockets of realness. Things like genuine, difficult art, raw, unmediated nature, truly spontaneous, unfiltered human connection. Because the hyperreal system is designed to make us feel comfortable, entertained, and subtly convinced that the simulation is better, safer, and more desirable than the messy, unpredictable desert of the real outside.
Okay, so whether it's a technological sim or a philosophical one, we have to ask the ultimate question. If there is a simulation, who are the architects? Who built it?
This is where speculation runs wild, obviously. The programmer or architect figure naturally brings up parallels with traditional concepts of God.
How so?
Well, you're talking about an intelligence that exists outside our space and time, that possesses the knowledge and power to design and create an entire universe, potentially omniscient regarding the simulation's contents. These are classic descriptions of a divine creator.
So simulation theory is like a religion for atheists.
Some people frame it that way, yeah. It provides a potentially logical, non-supernatural, or at least technologically supernatural, explanation for our existence and the universe's apparent design without requiring traditional religious faith.
But the creators don't have to be godlike, right? They could just be us from the future, or aliens.
Absolutely. Maybe we're an ancestor simulation run by our own vastly distant post-biological descendants who want to study their origins. Or maybe the creators are a highly advanced alien civilization.
Which brings in ideas like the zoo hypothesis.
Right. The zoo hypothesis suggests that maybe advanced extraterrestrial intelligences know we're here, but they deliberately avoid contact. They're observing us like we observe animals in a protected nature reserve.
Why would they do that? Containment.
Could be. Maybe they see us as too primitive or too potentially dangerous, and they're keeping us contained. Perhaps the difficulty of interstellar travel is an imposed limitation to prevent our messy, maybe self-destructive tendencies from having larger repercussions on the galaxy at large, as one source put it, or a quarantined experiment.
Or maybe we're just domesticated, allowed to develop on a controlled path.
That's another possibility. They might be subtly guiding or pruning our development, waiting for us to reach a certain level of maturity before revealing themselves, or maybe just watching to see how the experiment plays out.
So what would be the purpose of running this specific simulation? Our reality. Why would anyone spend the massive resources?
Well, why do we run simulations now? To understand complex systems, to predict outcomes, to explore possibilities, to train AIs, even for entertainment.
So our universe could be.
Maybe it's a historical archive simulation run by descendants wanting to experience what it was like to be biological humans in the chaotic 21st century. Or maybe it's a massive stress test for civilization itself. Do they overcome their challenges, climate change, war, inequality, and reach the stars? Or do they destroy themselves?
Run the simulation 1,000 times with different variables, see what factors lead to survival.
Exactly. Or maybe, just maybe, the most humbling purpose of all. The simulation is being run simply to see how long it takes the inhabitants to figure out that they are in a simulation. That could be the ultimate test, the final level of the game. So to kind of synthesize this whole deep dive, we've seen that quantum physics paints a picture of reality that is fundamentally informational, seemingly rendered only upon observation, and governed by what look like resource-saving constraints. That's pretty mind-bending on its own.
Yeah, the physics is weird enough even without the simulation overlay.
Right. Then you add the statistical argument from Bostrom. If these hyper-realistic simulations are technologically possible and our own tech seems to be heading that way, then statistically, the odds are overwhelmingly against us being in the one base reality.
We're probably in one of the copies.
Most likely. And then phenomena like the Mandela effect, synchronicity, maybe even NDEs, they start to look less like random noise or wishful thinking and more like potential evidence of glitches, timeline shifts, or even intentional plot steering within a simulated programmed reality.
So whether it's literally a simulation or not, it feels like the universe, its complexity, its evolutionary drive, it operates as if it's following some kind of grand, complex plan or program, always pushing towards more complexity, more consciousness.
It does seem to have that characteristic. And ultimately, maybe the most empowering takeaway from all this speculation isn't fear, but agency. If this is some kind of game or learning simulation,
Then we're not just passive pawns.
exactly. We are the player, we have choices, we have a role to play in how the story unfolds.
Okay, so that leads us to the final provocative thought for you, our listener, to maybe chew on after this. If we really lean into this simulation idea, specifically the RPG metaphor, if we accept, even just hypothetically, that our biggest challenges, our deepest struggles, our failures, are actually chosen difficulty levels, quests designed for our growth, how does that shift your perspective? Does it change your focus from just seeking comfort and avoiding pain towards actively embracing the meaningful, albeit difficult, challenges that seem inherent in your specific storyline?
And maybe ask yourself, what limitations, physical ones, psychological ones, cultural beliefs, career constraints, what limitations that you currently accept as fixed might actually be just artificially imposed rules of this particular game level. Rules that are perhaps designed for you to question, challenge, and ultimately try to transcend.
Are you playing on easy mode, content with the familiar? Or are you maybe ready to tackle that next level, face that boss fight, and see what you're truly capable of within this potential simulation? Think about that.
You've been listening to The Inner Ascent, where growth begins from within. If today's reflection resonated with you, consider sharing it or revisiting it later. Until next time, stay aware, stay curious, and keep rising.